Yo, what's up guys, it's Talon, and today I'm going to be showing you guys how to play an early game champion, especially in the jungle, but really any champion when your laners are doing really poorly. So I'm going to be skipping around in this game rather than just starting, or rather than just going through the entire gameplay, because we're mostly going to focus on the decision making. So starting off with why I decided to start blue side. The reason I started on the blue side of the map is because I have a Sion versus Garen on top side, and they're really hard to kill, right? Like, Sion early game's not going to really, probably be able to set up really good ganks. Garen's extremely tanky, will silence me, is going to be pretty hard to actually kill. So because of that, I go towards my dual lane, who's more likely for me to have an actual impact there. And because I'm an early game champion, I'm against a Lee Sin. I think that it's likely that if I path into Lee Sin, I actually will kill him early. And then you're going to see, funnily enough, Sion does instantly die. He gets the kill, but obviously he gets first blooded. And so you can see already, Sion does end up dying in the lanes, not looking amazing. It's looking fine now. He's about even gold because of that. But you already kind of see the start of the game sort of not looking the best. And then we just go around, we do our normal full clear. And then after we clear 4 camps, because I do have kind of a slow clear speed, I decide to contest the Herald before getting my 6th camp, just because of the fact that I know that my champion has a slower clear speed than Lee Sin, and so I need to go on this scuttle quicker so that I can secure it. So I do skip those Krugs for a second and then go back to them afterwards. That way Lee Sin does not get the scuttle, and I don't have to go all the way to the other side of the map to get a scuttle. So now I can hit level 5 off the Krugs and then potentially find a gank angle or something like that. But we don't end up finding a gank angle in this scenario. So we just end up recalling, spending our gold, and then going towards the top side. So this is something that's often going to happen. You're going to look for a full clear. Maybe you don't find a gank, and then maybe, the enemy jungle that finds a gank option. And now all of a sudden, not looking the best. Luckily, their Garen kind of inted, so he dies still. And you're going to see this game. I have 2 losing lanes in mid and dual lane, and then the top lane, Sion, I think by the time Dragon comes, is up about 200 gold. So it's not like we have 0 strengths, right? But then I want to show something actually really unique here, which is I use my Warwick second ability to track the Lee Sin, which is obviously a Warwick specific thing, but I track Lee Sin, I see him go away, and I know that he couldn't have possibly done his Raptors, so I invade them in a second. I want to show you guys why I know that by going back a little bit and showing you guys basically why I would be able to tell that. So the reason that I can tell that is that I know that his camps of his red side are going to spawn at the same time my blue side camps do. Except for the fact that his Krugs will likely spawn earlier, because I know he started red side because he ended up on his blue side. And since I started blue side, when my blue camps are spawning, his red camps will be spawning. And so since my Gromp just spawns, I know that his Krugs just spawned, right? Or he just killed his Krugs because he killed them first, whereas I started blue. And then I saw him on my sort of tracking thing with my second ability that he never actually went to his Raptors. And so I guarantee know that his Raptors are up. And I can already tell, right, my lanes are kind of going bad. Like you see, right there, they get a roam off and everything. And the Lee Sin, he forces a really weird gank, which doesn't really make sense, but ends up kind of working out for him. And so when these things happen where the enemy jungle is forcing really dumb plays early, and then your laners are also losing and kind of playing poorly, what you want to do is just play the efficiency game. So because the Lee Sin forces, a dumb gank, I end up going and invading, and then I try to find his red as well. I believe he barely gets back here in time, but what I did is I brought it to the bush so that he would think maybe it's already stolen, right? But he does end up checking, and then we do actually get the smite. So I did end up getting 2 camps. So I got his red, and I got his Raptors, which are 300 gold worth of value, which, he got a kill and an assist. So he got maybe 400, 450 gold of value, and I got 300, but I also denied him 300 because obviously those are his camps. So because of that, I end up getting a decent little, gold advantage from my play. But obviously because my laners are going down, it's not ideal. And then I go towards my red side immediately instead of doing my other camp because I assume he's invading, and so I'm trying to get what I can, I'm not trying to let him take too much. He does take 2 back though, so he does a good play, invading me because of the fact that I invaded him. This is going to be kind of rare that someone's actually going to do this and get away with it, because you saw I was about 5 seconds from even being able to stop him, and obviously my laners weren't aware of it, and this type of thing. But either way, despite having quite poor laners in this game where everyone's kind of not doing really well, we don't really have prio, we don't really have the ability to make many plays, we still have the Trinity Force on the timer that we need Trinity Force. And now my choice is pretty much where do I want to path towards. And so I'm going to show you guys the scoreboard really quick to help you understand where I decide and why I decide to go where I decide to go. We'll wait. I turned off my brightness for whatever reason. So here, we look at the scoreboard. We're down 2,000 gold. We're down 5 kills. My dual lane, they're down 1,000. My mid lane, down 1,000. My top lane, he's up 400, right? So clearly I'm going to go towards my mid laner because he's really the only person who's kind of valuable. So this is the first thing, right? When you are having a lot of losing lanes or a lot of teammates playing bad in the early game, you want to try to path towards whoever is doing the best. So in this case, I'm going to play around Sion because he's doing pretty decent, right? Then another thing to keep in mind is you want to try to avoid the enemy to the best of your ability. And because the enemy is matching me, I assume that he'd end on his blue side, which means he's probably more likely to do red, because typically you're going to clear each side of the map twice. And so he would do his red side, then his blue side, then he would do his red side and then his blue side again. And so it's pretty likely that he's going to stay on his blue side. Now, if he wanted, he could go for Herald. He could have the choice. But because he does that, you know, I'm more thinking it's likely that he'll end up doing that. And then this also gives me an opportunity to re-invade him, because keep in mind I have the timers on his camps since I invaded before. And so once again, I spend time invading. So you can see how frequently, because of the fact that this Lee Sin is a bad Lee Sin and is forcing stupid plays he shouldn't, I'm able to get multiple invades off on him. And this is a lot of Lee Sins, right? A lot of Lee Sins. I think I played against 3 Lee Sins in this stream today on Warwick, and they pretty much all did this, and I was able to abuse this stuff pretty much every time. And so we end up getting that ensemble, getting an invade, and getting that gold closer to even. And then we're going to really force this turret here, because when you do have a strength as well, you want to play around trying to get those turrets and trying to get your team, you know, some type of lead. And so we end up trying to force the turret. And then unfortunately, I do end up dying, getting blown up right before here. I thought that we'd be able to get the turret and then get out because I have my ultimate. I was about a second away from being able to do that. But even with me dying, we get the first turret gold value. We get an additional plate. And so all that gold value that we're getting is over 1,000 gold value. So even though I died, the gold is fine. Like, we're happy with that play and that outcome. Obviously, you know, I shouldn't have died. It would have been ideal if I don't. But that's the type of thing you're trying to do is play around those turrets and try to get that gold closer to even, to the best of your ability. Play around the people who are doing okay or doing well on your team, and that type of thing. And so again, I know that he invaded my blue because I look at him and I see he has a blue buff, and his blue buff is spawning in 20 seconds. So it must be my blue buff that he's taken. And so I just go straight to my red side. I already know my blue's gone. That's fine with me, again, because of all the invades we've gotten on him. And then we just go for efficiency. So now we're just going to farm our camps and not really force a gank unless we see a really good option. So we'll kind of skip through again now that we've kind of seen what happens, right? So now we farmed our camps. Then we're now going back to our Gromp because we know our Gromp's probably up. So we're just pretty much focusing on farming, playing on the opposite side of the map of the enemy jungle when possible, and playing towards our strength, which is, you know, Sion, who it's not like he's crazy strong, but he's doing decent. And then because Sion, I don't really know why he walked up like this, but because he randomly goes and distracts them there, I go for the invade again because I have this timer. And so you saw how this is the 3rd time in a row that I'm invading his Raptors plus Krugs. And what you guys might be thinking is like, well, you're just making your teammates game really hard because you're not ganking them, you're not setting them up, right? And I would completely agree that I have had less impact on lanes than Lee Sin. But the reasoning for why I have to do this in this specific game is because my laners were already losing really hard. We're not keeping track of jungle properly, despite pings, despite other things. And when this is the type of thing that I see, I'm not going to overforce on to bad laners and try to help them out. What I'm going to do instead is farm up myself and then wait for an opportunity like this to show up where I can utilize the fact that I am farming really well and I have a good amount of gold to then potentially get one good fight off. And then all of a sudden, as you see in this fight, we get a triple kill with the KS with the smite, and now all of a sudden the game's looking fine because I get that triple kill because I farmed up so well. I'm already hitting 2 items at 9 minutes, which is extremely fast. I have a bunch of camps up to go farm now, and we're just overall in a good spot to carry this game despite the team not doing well. Whereas if I played around my teammates who showed me that they're probably not the best based on the fact that they died early in lane, didn't track jungle properly, didn't manage their waves very well, and were taking a lot of poke in lane in matchups they don't really need to. Based on these factors, and again, this isn't really me blaming my teammates, like it's just what happened, that's fine. Like, you know, I accept that I'm gonna have bad teammates sometimes, even if sometimes I might get tilted, whatever. But the goal for me is to find a way to kind of carry, and usually that's gonna be, you know, selfish gameplay when I see my team performing like this. And so then you can see now I want to kind of show you guys the gold, right? And so again, you see 4 more assists on Lee Sin, in an additional kill, and he's down to 300 gold to me. And even though we're down 2k gold as a team, I am in a strong position as a jungler to potentially snowball, and my teammates, they're not so far behind that they're useless. Like, I still have my top laner, especially kind of being valuable. And so because of this, you know, like, we still have angles to win, and that's really what you're kind of looking for when you when your teammates are doing bad and they're falling behind. It's like you need to just get that one strength, right? Like, maybe the strength is you, maybe the strength is your one laner, but you need some type of win conditions, some type of strength. And so then another thing, my Akali, because she sucks for whatever reason, again, whatever, it happens, but she ends up dying for no reason before the objective, and my Sion also died about 25 seconds before the objective, which means that they would both be dead by the time objective spawns. So I'm not going to go force the objective. I'm going to farm my blue side, and then I'm going to go take the wave up top side, and I'm just going to get as much gold on myself as possible. So you can see, again, when your teammates continue to make these silly plays, don't over force on them, try to do dumb things. And I see I can try to pick Morgana. We don't end up getting her, but yeah. So, like, basically, don't force these dumb plays when your teammates are clearly just doing dumb stuff. Wait for the enemy to make some type of throw or some type of mistake. Farm up, get your own gold, play around whoever's doing pretty well on your team, if anyone's doing even okay. Because, again, usually you're not going to have 3 hard losing lanes. Usually you might have 3 losing lanes, but like one lane's like only down 500, whereas the others are down like 2,000, 1,000, whatever. Or you might have one lane like I did who's up 200 gold when your other lanes are down 1,000 each, right? And like in those cases, it's like you still have an angle to play the game. You still have something to do, and then you just try to play kind of avoidant early of the enemy jungle, and then you find an angle like this. And this is like the biggest timer in all of Wild Rift to win games and to come back on that nobody understands, and that is the minute before Baron. Oftentimes, a minute before Baron, you have a lot of decisions that really can impact the game and lead to kind of a lot of things that people just don't realize. The reason this timing is so important is because usually by this point, the game is kind of like, you know, in one direction or the other. Like this game, you know, the Lee Sin, the enemy team, they're doing well, they're ahead, and this is the time where there's no objective on the map, so you can be anywhere. I could be anywhere on the map and the enemy has no idea. And so I expect, based on the map here, the most likely way that someone's going to force a play is onto the Sion, because everyone else on my map is literally all the way behind, and the game revolves around waves, and each of these people are fighting on a wave where there's also a turret, whereas everything else is, you know, not really, you know, contested by anyone. There's nothing really to do. And so the reason that it's so important at this point in the game is because this is a time where you can take these outer turrets that haven't yet been taken. And so my goal here is this turret. That's my objective. Like, because, you know, again, there's no real objective, there's no Baron, there's no dragon, whatever. This is the timer where I really, really want to get this turret, because that's the most possible gold on the map. I've farmed all my camps. The waves, you know, they're being farmed by my team. And so I'm just simply going to sit here and wait for something to happen and then see if I can force something. And you're going to see in a second, Lee Sin's going to try to force onto a Sion. And then, boom, we're just going to go one-shot that Lee Sin because he's forcing onto a Sion. And then all of a sudden we get to kill the Garen right after. We get 2 kills, we break the turret open, and we completely switch like the kind of you know, fate of the game overall. The enemy team are still, you know, ahead, but it's much closer now, and we're hitting our power spikes again because of that early farming that we did, and everything like that. And so the enemy have gotten 2 dragons now at this point. And when they have 2 dragons and they had the early lead, but you end up finding a way to kind of shift the tide of the game through these things we spoke about in this video, then you're going to really need to make sure that you're getting that 3rd dragon, if at all possible, because that will deny the enemy's soul. Like 1 dragon or 2 dragons, it doesn't really matter. Like, it's not that strong. But if you allow the enemy to get 3 dragons, then they have the soul buff, and that's really where it becomes problematic. And so here now I'm going to back for my BF sword because that's a pretty good damage spike. And then I'm going to farm my red side now. The reason I'm going to try to farm my red side right when Baron spawns is because it's not going to be super likely that they're going to immediately force it, and I have vision. So because I have vision, I am allowed to do this. And then if I see the enemy for whatever reason, because I'm Warwick, I can run over there pretty dang fast. So I'm allowed to kind of do this, and my team's on the other side of the map, so they're kind of, you know, in a position to hover that. And then I will get my Terminus if I'm able to farm all my camps. So I'm like, okay, let me try to farm my camps. And then get the Terminus. If I get that Terminus, I'm on a really good power spike. I really want to do that. And so that's exactly what we do. And then what ends up happening is, because I have that vision, as soon as the enemy decide to, for whatever reason, start the Baron, I am able to immediately go towards that Baron and contest it, as we're going to see. And so the enemy, despite being ahead 4k gold, decide to flip a Baron at a really weird timer where, again, I have really good movement speed, I had the vision, and they didn't sweep it for whatever reason. My team's on that side of the map, so which is, again, why I knew I could do this. And then they just end up kind of throwing the game here, as you're going to see. The Karma dies instantly. We get the Morgana right after. We get the Fear onto 2. And then we just pretty much pop off in this fight, getting the Garen as well. And then I have the Blood Trail onto Lee, and because I have Gargoyle, I know I can bait him into my Scion, and so we do exactly that, and we kill him, we get the Quadra kill, and all of a sudden the game is looking really, really good for us. So it's really about farming, you know, being efficient, getting towards that those certain item spikes, and then around those item spikes, you play around the enemy mistakes. They're going to make throws, they're going to make dumb decisions. Again, if the Baron does spawn and you have no vision and your team might not be in a great spot for it, whatever, you need to be on the Baron side of the map getting that vision. But if you already have the vision, your team's on that side of the map and whatever, well then you're allowed to farm your other side of the map. So you have to be very careful about when you farm your side of the map that's on the opposite side of Baron when the Baron spawns. But again, because of the fact that I was aware that I have the vision and that I know my team's going to be able to stall out for a little bit, I have my second ability to get there closer, I'm able to make that farming play, and because I'm able to farm, I get the Terminus, and that Terminus is a big reason as to why I was able to wipe them at the Baron with the Quadra kill there. So these are the type of decisions that are really, really important. Like these certain key timers of the game, really, like, you know, the first key timer is that first objective, right? 5 minutes, first objective. Am I ahead? Okay, I'm ahead. I'm going to try to contest wherever the enemy jungle is contesting, and I'm going to try to play around my strong lane. Am I behind? Okay, then I need to play around whoever's not inting and who's not doing really bad. I need to try to avoid the enemy jungle, that type of stuff. And then here we decide to try to go into someone, but we get rooted, so I'm getting a little low. So I'm just going to heal off the dragon right away, and then I'm going to go onto the Caitlyn. I don't click my Gargoyle here, so I end up dying because I get stunned from, like, you know, 50% HP and then just die right away. But because we did, again, make the Sion's game a bit easier, and Sion just played pretty good. Again, Sion was kind of the one player who did play pretty well on my team. He ends up still doing really well in that fight, and we still got a bunch of damage off. So, you know, definitely didn't play that fight as I should have, but because of the earlier plays we made, because of the fact that we had Baron, because of the fact that we still got a lot of damage off, we end up winning that fight pretty hard regardless. And then Sion decides to be a silly goose and doesn't want to end the game. He's an interesting guy sometimes. He just decides to do that instead of finishing the game. So, you know, there's that, but it happens and we're still fine. So now here, you know, we got to make sure that we don't throw the game, but we do have 3 inhibs, so it's, you know, generally going to be pretty straightforward. When you do have this kind of situation where you kind of throw, but you have multiple inhibs, you just have to not panic or overforce too hard. You just have to kind of slowly push out those lanes and mainly focus on that. I try to zone the Lee Sin, but he ends up having QSS, and I didn't take that into account for whatever reason. So he gets the Infernal Soul, and so then we're like, oh, we might throw this game. That's not looking good. That was a dumb play by me. I shouldn't have done that. Kind of sucks. But again, we're just slowly pushing out these lanes. We're mostly playing around that. As long as they're pushing and we have that constant pressure, we're probably fine. I know that I'm really tanky. I can deal with this Garen if he does decide to contest me, because I have really, really good combat power. Like, that's really what I'm looking for as Warwick, is to find these random 2v3s, 2v1s, 2v2s, whatever, and then you're just going to see my damage already. Like, I'm going to one-shot that Karma. I have the Gargoyle, end up flashing away and healing off of the blue buff, and then because my ultimate's about to come up, I'm just waiting for that. I mark the Caitlyn so she can't possibly escape from me, and then she tries to recall and gets one shot, and then we end the game as we're distracting them all on the side lanes. So hope this video was kind of valuable for you guys, understanding how to play when you do have lanes not doing super well. Again, obviously my Sion did well, right? I'm not the only person who did good this game, but you know, I have multiple losing lanes. The early game we're down multiple thousands of gold. Lee Sin's getting a bunch of ganks, all these types of things, and we're still able to come back on an early game champ. Like, I'm not a late game champion, and yet I was still able to make these plays because I'm keeping my farm up. And if you have good farm, even if you're not a late game champion, you're going to do a lot in the late game because you're going to be ahead of the curve in terms of gold. So yeah, I hope this video was valuable to you guys. I'll see you guys later, and I hope you enjoyed.